Hi, Chris. How are you?
Really good, Rob. How's you?
Good. I've always been meaning to ask you, when you first started doing photography back when you were a kid, what camera did you start out on and why?
Well, the and why bit's because it was there. I suppose it wasn't my camera, it was my granny's camera. My granny's camera. That sounds strange, doesn't it? My granny's camera. But it was a Polaroid Swinger, which sounds even more strange, I suppose.
It was the 70s?
It was the 70s, late 70s. It was Cultural. I suppose that would explain everything. And it was there. And I remember taking my first photograph from memory was of an 8-track, what was kind of like the early version of the CD player. I suppose you know what 8-tracks were. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was like big chunky cassettes. Yeah.
I remember.
I took a photograph of the unit, which was kind of, in hindsight, was really lovely. It was nicely designed, kind of carpety front on it, beside a window. So I had the width to put it beside the window. So it was a nice enough shot. And the next shot was of my favourite tree that I remember climbing. And then after that, we moved into the kind of Instamatics that my mum bought me. She must have, I don't remember expressing any need for a camera, but I suppose, you get a camera at Christmas.
Yeah.
And what about you?
I just thought about this just right 10 seconds ago when I realized you were probably going to ask me the same question I just asked you.
Well, yeah, cool. Yeah.
The first photographs that I actually remember taking, my mom gave me a 126 Brownie with the little flip-up waist-level finder on the top.
Yeah, 1944, something like that. Something
yeah, right around there. Yeah, and I photographed her wedding.
No.
Her second wedding.
Shut up.
On her old little Brownie that she gave me to use. And I remember getting the film back. Luckily, I wasn't the wedding photographer because everything was blurred. I had no concept of what photography was, what was going on. But, I soon realized that shutter speed makes all the difference.
It would be an important part of
shooting. You can't take a picture when you're panning the camera back and forth like this all the time. So, those were that was the first couple rolls of film that I ever shot.
Did you importantly license those to your mother? Or
I wonder if they're still around. Oh my gosh.
Those are the shots to find.
Yeah, those really are. But, after that, I showed a pretty keen interest in photography, and I graduated from that to a Yashica GSN, I think it was, which was a rangefinder, like a little Japanese Leica.
I think I have
with a fixed lens on it, though. It was a fixed 45 or 50 millimeter lens.
Lovely. And what age are you? 16, 17?
No, I was like 9.
Yeah, that's upsetting.
9 or 10.
That's upsetting.
That's upsetting. 9 or 10. I ran that Yashica for probably 4 or 5 batteries worth, because it used special batteries in the bottom, and the shutter was electronic shutter, so it would only run off the battery. Yeah. And I remember I probably went through about 4 or 5 batteries before I graduated to the next camera. And my grandfather was heavily into cameras and photography.
I got this feeling.
Well, he was very much into photography, but he was also kind of miserly with his money. So he had a collection of Praktikas.
Lovely. Yeah.
And he couldn't understand why I would ever want a Japanese camera when you could get a Praktika for a fraction of the price. Yeah. And looking back at it, he's absolutely right. Like it's always whatever camera's in front of you is the best camera you have. Yeah. But I wanted something with a little more depth, because I thought I was going to grow into photography, and the Praktika line didn't really have that sort of depth. Yeah. So I went from that Yashica, the original Yashica. I was looking at the next Yashica up, which would have been mid-80s, and it was called an FX3. Mm-hmm. But then my birthday came around, and to my surprise, I didn't get a camera. I didn't get an FX3. Mm-hmm. Instead, I got a Contax 139, which had the Zeiss lenses and everything. I only got the one lens, the 50mm lens, but I got a Contax camera, so that started a real road into photography.
But your mum wasn't thinking of getting remarried again, obviously. She wasn't like
I wasn't
planning-
going to be shooting any more weddings.
She wasn't going to get you another,
I wasn't going to be doing
camera.
No. So yeah, I mean, so I got a decent camera that I could really grow into the system with.
Yeah.
And that's when I really got into photography. And I got into high school, and I got on the yearbook staff doing photography in high school. And we had a darkroom in the high school, and I was like virtually the only person ever using the darkroom. So I had the whole darkroom. I had a darkroom key, I had a key to the darkroom. I was in there all the time, smelling.
This is upsetting.
Of chemicals.
It's upsetting. I'm going to make up stories now.
That's my life. That's what I did.
I'm going to make up a really brilliant story about
I used to get friends, he'd be like, "Hey, can you process some film for me?"
Yeah.
Knocking on the darkroom door.
Yeah. I had none of that. I have to say, I came on up very, very late. You know, if you think of the first cameras, and then you skip maybe, maybe 15, 20 years. You know, you're taking photographs, of course, but not, you know, there was no growing into cameras in my head. It was just kind of, well, it wasn't. It didn't, not until there was a guy called Alistair McCook, who is from Portrush. Well, is he from Portrush? He lives in Portrush. I used to live in Coast Guard cottages in Portrush. Alistair's not there, but I lived beside him, and he was mad into the motorcycles, and he would be, you know, closing the blinds, putting the darks up, and I don't know if it feels like every weekend, but it's probably me embellishing that. You go in, and it would just be the lovely smell of chemicals, and he was sitting, you know, doing the whole thing. Processing photographs of 1970s, all sorts of stuff with all motorbikes, and I had no interest in motorbikes.
But
well, I was interested in the magic that was going on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, it was quiet, it was conversational, all this stuff. And then he said his friend was selling the camera. Was I interested in buying it? I was like, yeah, and that was it. Now, what age was I then? God, I'm 26, something like that.
holy,
Yeah, old.
you're late to the party.
Late to the party. In fact, I wasn't even invited. I had to invite myself. So somebody must have. But that was it, and that was kind of my. And I didn't. You know, it wasn't a big dramatic road. I was saying this the other day at a talk. You know, I think I met somebody in a bar who developed photographs for the Korean Chronicle, which is kind of a local paper, and. I went in and told him I was a caretaker at the time. I went in and told him I was a freelance photojournalist who'd moved into the area. Did they have any work going? I literally knew how to turn the camera on and load a film. There was no shooting manual. This was a really low, you know, really. And they said, yeah, and and your guy said, if you mess it up, I'll just say the film was fogged. And they sent me to a how-to race course to take photographs of motorbikes. So watching Alistair do his work, I kind of had an idea about all the compositional stuff. But with regards to shooting anything at speed, no. And I think I got 3 photographs in the paper, and they were all of stuff that was happening in the pits, nice portraits. And that was kind of it. And then I was hooked. That was what you would have been. You were probably in the Bahamas at that point, doing all
when I was
sorts
26?
Yeah, doing all sort of interesting work,
yeah.
you know, so, but I think it's one of those things that, you know, like I do look back at that, the early stuff, not the very early stuff, but the stuff I was doing, I look at it and I'm like, it was the feeling of getting the stuff into the paper. You know, it was local paper, but it was a big feeling, you know, it was all that, you know, it wasn't the New York Times or anything like that, but it was, for me, it was a big deal. And it must have been,
Sure.
I imagine that was then the catalyst for the wanting to do other stuff. And it took me ages now. How long was I caretaker for? 15 years. And, you know, doing photography on and off. And then kind of getting more serious with the whole thing. I'm very late to the party. Very late to the party.
You were doing well.
You're doing well, he says. I'm going to look into the camera and look. and yeah, I'm doing okay. I suppose I'm doing okay. Considering I was late to the party. But yeah, but I think you obviously had a big, you'd obviously thought the whole thing through. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I think it was, you know, it was high school, joining the camera club and the yearbook staff. Yeah. And I mean, if I wasn't out on a dirt bike or a snowmobile, I was in the darkroom.
You said all the wrong stuff still.
And just, you know, fully immersed in it, like understanding what the chemicals were doing. Like the first time my French teacher who ran the camera club, he showed us, the darkroom, and he ran, a sheet of film, a sheet of paper through the trays, and you're like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and I think that there was no coincidence that was I was obviously much older, but it was that the magic of the whole thing. I literally was mesmerized. I remember thinking, this is just and the how easy it was to mess it up, but whenever you got it right, and I also got it right all the time, it was brilliant.
Yeah.
You come out a wee bit smelly and kind of into the bright light, and you were kind of a wee bit dazed.
Or you lose track of time and you're locked in the school.
Okay, I hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. You're like walking through the halls of high school, trying to
open,
jumping on doors, going,
I thought you were going to say trying to open cupboards to get exam results.
No,
a very different life from you and I. And this was in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it was building a portfolio, because it was either going to be that or an architect. And when they told me that an architect sits at a desk all day, I didn't want to do it. So I thought, photography, I'll be outside all day, I'll be doing stuff.
You're too handsome for an
And now look at this. Now we're sitting behind the computer.
Doing the whole thing. Well, but the thing is with portfolios. So in those days, what would that have been? 80s?
Yeah, this would have been the 80s. The thing with, between the camera club and the art classes I was taking, I still couldn't get a good comprehension of what a portfolio was. A gathering of images to portray yourself to
certain people.
So I had to gather a portfolio together to send off to university.
Okay.
To apply.
Yeah.
And my portfolio was so ragtag. It was so ridiculous. It ranged from 5x7s to 8x10s to 11x14s.
Continuity-wise?
Continuity, it was all over the place. It was black and white, it was color, it was like people, it was landscapes, it was all over the place.
But all scanned?
No. This is all traditional printing. This is all silver. There's no scanners, there's no computers.
So it was actually a picture stuck into
So these were physical prints. These were
all.
So I took like 20 or 30 of my favorite photographs.
Okay, I get you.
Put them in a big cardboard sleeve that I made.
Yeah.
Shipped them off to the universities and colleges.
How'd that go?
It was kind of I got accepted. Well, I got the letter back saying I was basically accepted from one university. Yeah. And it was great. So I was waiting for the paperwork to start coming through, and my last final year of high school was coming to an end, and I wasn't getting any of this paperwork. So I called them up, and they said, "Oh my gosh, no, you were sent that in error.
No.
That doesn't mean that you were accepted. That means that you passed all our things, all our tests and the portfolio and everything, but we haven't admitted you into the program." So meanwhile, I had canceled with 2 other colleges. So I got on the phone with both colleges. One college said, "No, we can't bring you back in." Yeah. Second college, I basically pleaded with the secretary, and she said, "I'll put you on the waiting list." She put me on the waiting list, and I was like 73rd on the waiting list.
A lot of people.
I called almost every day after that. Yeah. I got in. So I never wasted a year after high school. I went straight into college. I did a 2-year diploma program. Yeah. It was up at the top of the class. I don't know if I was head of the class, but I got good grades, really good grades.
I doubt that very much, but anyway.
I got really good grades, and then went out, graduated, and went out in the field.
Making work?
Doing both photography and retail sales.
So the portfolio was, so you obviously honed your skills for portfolio going through university. You came out, and it wasn't a ragtag bunch of images put into some sort of random order, the one you'd sent away to the university. You'd come out and your stuff was much better?
Yeah, when I came out of college, my work was much better. I understood stuff much better. Obviously, everything advanced. My processing, everything, color printing, color processing, all that stuff advanced. I had a much better grasp on everything, much better grasp on lighting. And it was totally worth it. Looking back, a lot of the stuff, I mean, especially today, a lot of the stuff can be learned outside of school, I believe. So whether it's on video tutorials, whether it's a lot of hands-on, whether it's apprenticing or assisting photographers.
It's a good conversation. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But it needs to come to an end soon.
The conversation?
Yes.
Oh no, 'cause I was going to start. Okay, no, but listen,
That can be for part two,
that can be
Chris.
part two. Yeah, but okay. Is it? Why are we up? Are we up
We're
now?
up.
Oh, for flip's sake! Such so enjoyable.
So thank you very much,
Thank you very much.
and we'll see you in part two.
Yeah. I was in the zone, Rob. I was in the zone. That felt like 10 minutes.